Well, it has been an active afternoon throughout southern Ontario. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Krissy Vann in for Suzanne Leonard. And throughout the afternoon, we have been tracking this band of storms moving through that has resulted in a severe thunderstorm watch. You can see now the watch encompasses areas east of the GTA, so Ottawa Valley will be keeping a close eye on. And then as well in the Niagara region, I know that you were seeing torrential downpours, and the National Weather Centre, as the storm crossed the border, had actually issued a severe thunderstorm warning. Looking at the system, though, you can see that mainly for the GTA, we'll just be dealing with rain within the next hour or so, and then there are hopes of seeing a glimpse of sunshine. I know some of your tweets already showing us that you are seeing the sun. You can see the lightning on our lightning map here has really tapered off. We do still see some bands through Niagara Falls, but overall, the weather story for the GTA starting to improve. Rainfall warning still in place, though, for areas like Caledon approaching Barrie. You could be seeing 50 to 70 millimeters of rain, certainly possible as those storms move through, but the heaviest bands are going to be heading in toward eastern Ontario and southern Quebec. So you can see it pushing in through Kingston, Brockville. That is where you're going to have to keep a very close look if you're heading into those areas with your mobile app if you're heading out the door, because you certainly have the potential of seeing some severe weather. Now for Toronto this evening, some great news. This is the icon we like to see for the summer. Things really clearing up. We're starting to see the sunshine pop up. 20 degrees though, so you can see as that front has passed, we have cooled off. Even for those of you that have dealt with the storms already, I'm sure you noticed as it passed that there was a definite cooling. That humidity has dropped. So Wednesday, you're looking at 21, feeling like 24. You get to keep the sunshine. And then, although far out, we're looking at our next round of wet weather for Sunday. Now, we're without power. In fact, I was reporting traffic that day, and it was phenomenal to see how quickly the situation changed. And myself, I actually didn't even have access to the traffic cameras involved in those flooded areas because we lost power here with access to those. Now, take road work. Coming up, we'll take another live look at traffic, and as well, we'll be tracking the rain as it heads out of southern Ontario. Thanks so much for joining us on this active weather day for southern Ontario. I'm Krissy Vann in for Suzanne Leonard, and we really love seeing your photos, and many of you have been sending us pictures of what you were seeing as the storm went through. This is in Oakville, Ontario. Thank you so much, Rick, for sending this in. Some very ominous looking clouds. If you're heading out the door and you encounter that, that is when you get yourself indoors. In fact, yesterday, and I know I work at the Weather Network, but I was heading out of the mall, went in, and it was nice and sunny, came out, and I had to pull the old grocery bag umbrella trick, which unfortunately didn't keep me very dry. Now, heading in through this evening, our risk here in southern Ontario will start to dissipate a little bit. Can't rule out the chance of a non-severe storm, but our threat for severe weather is mainly going to be through eastern Ontario. Gusty winds, torrential downpours, as well in Niagara Falls. You can see the Niagara region still included in that severe weather threat. This is the system that caused that soaking. We're starting to see that taper off through the GTA, so luckily shouldn't be impacting the commute too heavily, but we can't rule out hydroplaning being a concern after we had all this rain falling, ponding and pooling on the roads is definitely problematic when you're heading out. As we head through the evening, we do have the trough that passed through. This cold front could bring some isolated showers through the Nickel Belt region, but overall, once the cold front passes through, our humidity is going to be heading right down. So through Wednesday, you can see not any much of a humidex value, 21 degrees in Toronto, 18 in Orangeville, so significantly cooler than what we've been seeing. And in Toronto, as we head through the rest of the week, temperatures are going to be quite pleasant if you like having the windows down and the air conditioning off. Now, we've seen a lot of lightning with the past few storms. We hand it over to Jacqueline with the science behind lightning. Thanks so much, Jacqueline. Love seeing you dive into the science behind the weather. Take coverage on the storms that have been making their way through southern Ontario as they push east. Thanks so much for joining us on another T-Storm Tuesday. I'm Krissy Vann in for Suzanne Leonard. Of course, we had this big bulk of moisture moving throughout our afternoon, and it's just starting to edge out of the GTA. Our biggest risk for severe thunderstorm watches that are in place extend now into eastern Ontario, so Ottawa Valley, certainly the potential of some severe weather, as well Niagara Falls and in through the Niagara region. We'll be keeping a close look for severe thunderstorms that could possibly develop there. But this is the system system that caused the soaking. As you can see, the bulk of it now making its way eastward, but it did bring quite a few lightning strikes as it made its way through, but you have seen that dissipate within the last hour or so for many parts of southern Ontario. As we make our way, though, throughout the day, there's some good news. We had some rainfall warnings earlier. They extended through Caledon and up toward the Barrie area. It looks like those have now been dropped because 50 to 70 millimeters of rain were quite possible. And I know many of you actually have been tweeting us some photos where you did get some heavy ponding and flooding on certain parts of the roads. As we continue throughout the day, though, you can see the system continues to push eastward, and that's why we do have the potential of seeing some severe cells pop up. The reason why we didn't really see them here is because we didn't have a chance to get that daytime heating. But for those of you in eastern Ontario, you've been in the sunshine and baking throughout the day, so we'll definitely have to keep a close eye. In Toronto this evening, you can see things really improving, clearer skies and 20 degrees, and really heading throughout the week. For myself, I love the humidity, so not the best news for people like me, but if you're a windows down, keep the air conditioning off kind of person through Toronto, 21 degrees for your Wednesday and Thursday, and then our next chance of some wet Toronto. So I actually worked that day, and it was pretty unbelievable to see the situation on the roads changing so rapidly. Very thankful that with all that rain that fell today, we're not dealing with a similar situation, but we do up to the 401. Coming up, we'll have continuous active weather coverage on the system moving through southern Ontario. Thanks so much for that, Mark. You know, for a storm chaser today, not so good. They like seeing that really active weather. But for the rest of us here in southern Ontario, certainly happy that the patio furniture stayed in place, although certainly on the soaked side. Taking a look at the cloud tops here, though, you can continue to see this system making its way east. And that is why we're going to be keeping a very close eye on eastern Ontario, southern Quebec. That is where the threat of the severe weather goes. But right now, certainly still areas seeing some wet weather, particularly through the Niagara region. I know they had a torrential downpour about 30 minutes, 40 minutes ago, but this system's on the move eastward. And as I say, Ottawa Valley as well as the Niagara region still under a severe thunderstorm watch. So we're going to have to keep a close eye on those areas. The biggest threats with this through this evening, particularly in this red stretch that you're seeing, are going to be torrential downpours, very high wind gusts, and we're going to have to keep an eye as well at the threat of seeing rotation with some of those systems. But right now, not looking too bad for that. Toronto this evening, great news. We are seeing clearing skies and 20 degrees. And through the overnight, it continues to clear up for us, but getting down to 13. So pack a sweater. Now, looking at the commute, there are a couple things that I want to note. Coming up, we'll have more active weather coverage, and it's the anniversary of the flooding in downtown Toronto. We'll be taking a look back later in the show. Throughout the afternoon hours. Luckily, we didn't see any of that severe weather. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Krissy Vann in for Suzanne Leonard. Taking a look at the rest of this evening, our threat for the severe conditions is mainly going to be through the Niagara region and then in eastern Ontario with that high winds, torrential downpours. And then for the rest of us, we still have the chance of seeing some isolated non-severe storms, but our humidity has really dropped. I'm sure you felt that as you headed outside. Looking at the traffic cameras, I can verify this system moving on out. It's been heading eastward, and as a result, we're now into sunshine for many of us. But look at this in the Niagara region. They have just been getting hammered with rain. It's been edging its way over the border, so the heaviest of it is on its way out, but certainly that caused quite a thing on the QEW. I know flooding and ponding on the roads, a major concern. Through the rest of the evening, though, just a trickle of precipitation, that rainfall left to go. And luckily, when we look at our roads, it hasn't really impacted the commute too much. There were people that had to abandon cars in the middle of the road. People were trapped on that GO train for 6.5 hours. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm Krissy Vann in for Suzanne Leonard. And of course, it is the anniversary of that epic flooding in downtown Toronto. 126 millimeters recorded at Pearson International Airport, breaking a new record that was previously set by Hurricane Hazel. As we head through the overnight hours, that cold front continues to swing through. Along the front, you can expect some gusty northwest winds, and you're going to really be feeling that cold front. We've been dealing with that humidity that is dropping. The air is going to be much more cooler, which is going to create the conditions for you to be able to enjoy no air conditioning if you want to open up the windows. So through Wednesday, cooler, risk of some isolated thunderstorms. Coming up, more footage from around the globe in Force of Nature Extended.
Visit our
Well, the summertime, great time for a road trip. If you're heading out on Wednesday, we do have high humidity in Atlantic Canada, risk of a thunderstorm through southern Ontario, a little bit cooler, but overall drying out. And then northern Alberta, you do have the risk of seeing a potential thunderstorm. For BC, staying high and dry with plenty of sunshine. Thursday, central Saskatchewan could see a storm and a bit on the muggy side, and keeping cooler through southern Ontario. And we make our way from around the world in 80 seconds to your photos of today's wet weather. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm Krissy Vann in for Suzanne Leonard, and we were seeing heavy downpours in southern Ontario throughout the day. Look at this river running down the road in Aurelia, Ontario. Thanks so much, Annabelle, for sending that footage in. And then we head to these dark and gloomy storm clouds in Oakville, Ontario from earlier today. Thank you so much, Rick. Now, that system has made its way through, and I'm sure you have felt things cooling down as the cold front has made its way. 20 degrees in Toronto for this evening, 19 in Hamilton and 19 in Newmarket. So quite a bit cooler than what we felt this weekend. And look at this in the overnight hours. Sweater weather for sure if you're making your way to a patio in Toronto, 14 degrees. So you'll definitely want to bundle yourselves up. Wednesday afternoon, we're going to be staying in this pattern. You can see 21 degrees Toronto, 18 in Barrie if you're up in cottage country. Orangeville only 18 as well. So a significantly cooler pattern. And the Humidex, well, you can see we have bid that for a while. Now, coming up, we'll have more weather details for the GTA as well.